Alright. Can I get a golden retriever? Nope. Here's the thing. My grandparents have Rottweilers, so I wouldn't mind getting a Rottweiler. Pug. Oh, I don't know. I don't know how many pets I'm allowed. I mean, I think I can always send. Um. Oh my god, I don't want to. I gotta take this Barbarella. It's too cute. Oh man, they have Thai names. I don't really know. I don't know what's a Thai name for a dog. Male. No, Thai origin Thai. Oh, Chat Tree. I like the name Chat Tree. I'll give him that. Oh my god, it's so cute. Oh. Alright, I don't know where I can have furniture with you. Alright, take two job. Alright, energetic. Helper stubborn. A ton of love and absolute devotion mixed with the strength and ferocity. Rottweilers are a breed known for their times of antiquity. Antiquity? I don't know. In proper hands, they could become the most caring friends of dreams of. Give treat. Here you go. Alright, I'm going to get some pet stuff. Let's see. What will be space for pet stuff? Definitely gonna need to put a bed. Oh, I mean, we could transform this spot to his room, so let's sell this stuff. We're gonna decorate this part of the room to be the dog room. Let's see. What kind of floors? Coverings? Maybe some carpet. Probably some carpet. Yeah, some carpet would be nice. How about this? This is normal enough. I'll keep the wood. Yeah, I think the wood is fine. Right, pets. Dogs. Care. Yeah, we gotta get a bed. Let's see. I will sort by their price. Oh yeah, we gotta get this stuff for. I like this kind of bed. Yeah, this one's cute. Make it black and brown. Red. roof's pretty big though. Wait, is that everything? Yeah, we gotta get there. Feeder. Put this in the kitchen. Do it here. And get the water feeder. Alright. Pee pad. Do I need a pee pad? I'll put it in the bathroom just in case. if he does need it. Oh shit, there's no space. I do have a backyard, so maybe we could do something out here. Right, under bowl mat. Oh, can I put this on top? It's a bit too big, I think. So let's try this. Bon appetit. Alright, then out here I think I could put the bath stuff. I mean, I don't think my house has a bath, so bathtub, so I'm gonna need that. Yeah, it's a puppy right now, so we'll do this. Sure, we could do it out here. Let's play fetch. Go long. Oh. Yeah. Oh, hit the tree. In the top you go. Already clean, oh, okay. It will tell you if I need cleaner or not. Or if say it's already clean. Right. We have a lot of outdoor space. Alright, let's see. Toys and activities. I have a dog treadmill. I guess we can just put this here. It's playtime. Alright, I guess that's the essentials that I need, right? So Yeah, unless I need a pee pad outside, it tells them to go pee outside. I guess I'm not sure how that works. So I'll just do this here. Alright, let's see. Let's go get with a job. But we should look at the birds. Yeah, still the same bird. Cats. Reptiles, turtle, iguana, turtle. Fish. Alright, let's go on the job now. Now that I have my little buddy now. Oh, wait, I still need to set up some things here. Give me a moment. I forgot to even set up my phone and everything. Alright, let's see that one job there. Oh yeah, the uptight one. Oh wow, all the furniture is outside. I guess, are they moving? Or is it because the house inside is ruined?
We all need order. Without it, terrifying things happen. Take my neighbors. They almost put my cat on fire. By accident, of course. I am different. There is no place for accidents at my home. That's why I did so much to make your tasks unambiguous. I prepared everything. Furniture, tiles, paint, and bathroom fixtures. Just put it all together. Nothing beyond your capabilities, I suppose. It's not rocket science after all.
Okay, so she is just like a set thing
The grade.
that she wants me to do. Alright, well, first of all, we gotta remove the weeds. Teamwork. Look at this little hat. It's got a little paper hat. Ready for a good day's of work. Alright, first of all, we gotta mow the lawn. Mow the lawn. Oh yeah, I should get some music or something. Actually, I got another. I want to listen to the podcast again, the Triple KO podcast, so I'll go listen to that. Cancelled fighting games. Let's just give that a listen to. Sorry, this is a very loud intro.
Triple KO!
Welcome back to Three Punches in Your Face. I am, of course, flanked by the other two punches, Mr. Justin Wong and Mr. Maximilian Dude.
Hello.
How are you
Hi,
guys today?
guys.
Hello, you don't see the knuckles? You don't see like the brass knuckles on the fist? You know what I mean?
Oh, please tell me you have one that says Justin and one that says Wong.
No, that could be an investment in the future. You know, we never know.
Weapons. You know, you might like punch someone in the face and they might get canceled. And then another thing about that is canceled fighting games,
Ooh,
which is our subject today. Off the top of your heads,
we don't even have a
gentlemen,
budget.
what
She
is,
straight up bought everything that
a
we
canceled
need.
fighting game that you may or may not know that may or may not have the word Capcom in the title?
I think everyone knows
thinks
that
the same thing. Capcom All Stars.
I
Yeah.
wish. Yep.
We've talked about it
Yeah.
before.
I think the crazy part about this is that like, since we all grew up around this time frame, that like we seen that like the start and then to the finish of like okay, this game got announced. This game has location test. Okay, this game's not coming out. Now what?
Oh my god, I ran over my dog.
We all faced through that, and it's so unfortunate because I feel like, I mean, I think we talked about it a few times in the previous episode, but it's more of like, Capcom, just release it. Just let us play it. Let us do something with it. I just want something.
And there was a little bit of a resurgence of it because Nakayama, who's the dude that wears, like, I believe he wears the hat on the Capcom like debuts of Street Fighter stuff. He's like one of the new main dudes at Capcom fighting game division. Was talking about Capcom Fighting All Stars like quite a bit a while ago when everyone thought Luke was Rook. Yeah. from the weird cowboy guy, I can't even remember, from Capcom Fighting All-Stars, which was an original main character. The two dudes in that game, by the way, are just maximum impact characters.
They are.
It's the
Absolutely.
weirdest thing. They look like they're just side by side, those weird maximum impact shitheads, but just in a completely different game. And he was straight saying like showing things about the game that it still exists in some way.
Like, those three characters look like that, like even Ingrid, because Capcom All-Stars was headed up by ex-SNK staff. Like, they had just moved over to Capcom, so that's why they look SNK as shit. But when Justin went through that little, like, history lesson of, like, it's announced, there's location tests, there's one, like, other point when I was reading about this game, it's like, there's finishing moves. And I was like, oh my god!
Did we ever see those in the location? The location test footage exists. It's from, no shit, like, circa 2002. So it looks, everything's filmed on a potato, but from what I remember seeing the location test footage, most of it did not have, like, I don't think I saw finishers or fatalities yet. They were just messing around with the basic gameplay stuff, right?
Yeah. There's footage of two, actually.
Really?
There's footage of Strider doing one, and there's footage of Ryu doing one. Ryu's is just big Shinku Hadoken.
Yeah.
The camera, like, turns to him, and it's, like, this big dramatic shot, and it says, like, it has some type of, like, I forget what it's, like, critical blow or whatever. I think it's, like, critical finish. Anyway. And then Strider's is like a bunch of Strider clones come out and they all do like
the Ragnarok, okay.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
So that's the only thing I've ever seen, and my main thing about this game is like, Alex wearing his jacket.
Yeah, that was
so
such a cool element. I was like, damn, that's badass. For anybody that's like really curious of what the hell Capcom was at this time, like this was the interesting phase of Capcom because everyone talks about the dark age of fighting games. And why do they call it the dark age of fighting games? Well, because the scene of the fighting game community was primarily hoisted by a lot of Capcom games at the time. Guilty Gear scenes existed, 3D scenes existed, like Tekken and Guilty Gear, and a lot of other fighting games were doing just fine. Virtua Fighter was doing great around this time frame. But for some reason, a lot of the FGC, and Justin could probably echo this, was really helmed by a few key titles for many years. And it was like CBS2, Third Strike, Super Turbo to a degree, and MVC2. Like, these were the big, like, premier games that were around. And then suddenly, right around when this, like, Capcom All-Stars thing was a thing, even Fighting Jam, Jesus, God rest my soul for saying that shit, is those games were essentially like the burial, the beginning of what was the Capcom Dark Age for their fighting game division.
Yeah, I could see that just because like you mentioned, all those old games still like existed during like Evo, for example, for at least like 2002 all the way leading up to 2008. Yeah. And bro, even Capcom Fighting Jam never made it to Evo. No. It never made it to Evo on its official game. The only tournament that Capcom Fighting Jam ever had something big was actually called SBO. It had an SBO qualifier, SBO like finals and everything, Super Battle Opera. It's like pretty much Japan's Evo at the time. And that's actually how I was able to go to Japan for the first time, because me and Ricky Ortiz qualified for Capcom Fighting Jam.
Who did you use? Who did you and Ricky use in Fighting Jam?
All right, so I only used one character.
Okay.
You have to pick two characters, right? But you don't have to learn how to play the second character.
They all have,
you were that good.
And just so everybody knows, because Fighting Jam is such a trash heap. This game is so weird where you have to pick characters. Like if you pick a Third Strike character, they literally have like a Third Strike style, and you can't change it. It was like CVS2 groove system, but less freedom, right? So everyone was locked to a specific play style. So you had like SF2 Ryu versus Third Strike characters and shit.
Yeah, so I played Karen and Guy, and I was just mainly just a Karen main the whole entire time of the game. And I mean, it got me a free ticket to Japan. So even though Capcom Fighting Jam is a terrible game, it gave me my first experience of the Land of the Rising Sun. So I can't really talk crap about too much.
That's really funny.
I was going to mention, Matt, we're on the subject of canceled fighting games, and that game's definitely canceled. Like, in the modern sense of like what was canceled, like Fighting Jam came out and it was quickly canceled by the community and by like reviewers and everybody. That game was ostracized.
To be fair,
if we were to start
Devo, the Evolution Tournament, Capcom Fighting Jam has to be there, you know.
Wow.
When I did a video on it and I was showing people how lazy the backgrounds are, where they just repurposed old artwork from other sources because they didn't have time to redraw sprites, people found new ones that I didn't see.
That are like stuck back there?
It was, there's, in the New York stage, T-Hawk is just hanging out, but it's not...
What?
It's not T-Hawk. It's just Ken's third strike win pose, where he's just got like his.
Oh, he's just drawn over.
Wow.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And they put T-Hawk's headband on Ken. It's the greatest. Love this game.
That's almost as good as Mr. T being in the background of a Street Fighter EX stage.
Yeah. No, it's the best. Why don't we take a second right here to give a shout out to Honey, who is today's episode is sponsored by them, and it's the easy way to save when shopping on your iPhone or computer. Justin, I believe you used Honey before, right?
Yeah, so before, you know, I was just looking for a crock pot, and crock pots are actually kind of expensive now. And
that sounds very specific.
Yeah, you know, it's because, you know, I mean, we are all, you know, pretty much in our own like relationships with families, and sometimes you guys just want to buy something nice for the women in the family, right? Because they always talk about having a nice kitchen, and a crock pot, I used Honey to actually look for a good discount. And I think it was like $25.99 off from the original purchase, and I was like, damn, that's nice.
Yeah, this actually came in relatively clutch for me too, because I've been sick and my whole family has been sick, and we're trying to get out of this thing. And we got this Honey sponsorship, and we got like the add-on which attaches to your browser. I think it goes on your phone as well. And we had to order a bunch of stuff because we're sick, just to get us back to health. And yeah, I saved a whole bunch of money. I didn't even realize that there would be promotional codes or coupons for some of these things. So it definitely came in clutch for us.
It's incredible that the amount of stuff that people are just able to find, like specific stuff, like the almighty crock pot.
Hey, don't be hating on the crock pot.
I'm not at all. But this works on your computer, on your desktop, but you can use it on your phone too, I believe.
Yeah, it actually works on your iPhone. You can activate it through Safari and pretty much get your own extension for it. And you get like the notification of just getting like coupons depending on which site you go to and visit. It just does it automatically. Thanks
to Honey for sponsoring today's episode. If you don't already have Honey, you could be straight up missing out. And by getting it, you'll be doing yourself a solid and supporting our show. And you can get Honey for free at joinhoney.com/TKO. That's joinhoney.com/TKO. Thanks again to Honey for the sponsorship. But Fighting All-Stars, do you think there's any viable way Capcom could do something with this? Like try to release a build, or like just release an EXE, just everyone go at it? Or do you think like it's just way too long gone?
I think the only way is if fans petition or something where we get a the problem is it's like that you wouldn't want to spend any money or budget on it, right? You'd want to like just have it be
that's not supposed to go there.
Almost like if there was a Capcom Fighting Collection 2 that had like rival schools and some Street Fighter EXs or something
and
like that.
And like a demo, right?
Exactly.
A demo would be nice.
And it was just maybe like a core roster of 5 or 6 characters or something, that ones that just work. But once again, the problem is that like spending the budget and time to go into an old ass build of an old ass game to try to figure out how to like repurpose stuff is like a lot of work. So
corner for now.
Do you know what it could be a lot like? I bet you there was a certain percentage of people, I don't know how sizable it was, that when Nintendo released the Super Nintendo Mini, it says Star Fox 2 right on there.
It's a
like,
TV.
there has to be percentage of people. It's like, I'll get it.
There.
Can you emulate Star Fox 2? You can, but like, you know, I want to check that out. So if there was a Capcom Fighting Collection 2, and they said like there's a little demo of Fighting All Stars. It's like I can imagine a percentage of just FGC people, like hardcores, just being like, nah, gotta try that. Have to.
Even the retro community would probably still.
This is not a dining table.
Playing fighting games since like the 90s.
I mean, for one person, like 4 people maybe.
Like I watched the footage just like this morning before we filmed, and I'm like, man, this game looks pretty sick. Like just looking at like how the playstyle is, the supers. Ryu had this 1-inch punch super that I guess it's actually.
Wait, is it cat box or cat bowl?
Street Fighter 5 with V Trigger 2, where he just decks you in like the chest. Okay. So he actually had that as a super in Capcom Fighting All Stars, and yeah, I mean, I would love to play it. And even Nash had Guile's Sonic Hurricane, which Nash really never had. He never really did that type of super, but they gave it to him. So stuff like that would be very awesome, I think, for like today's time of like FGC streamers and content creators and fans.
Yes,
Max might know about this, but Justin, do you know about Declaration of Victory?
No, what is Declaration of Victory? Is that a special move?
I can't wait. I can't wait. I'm so giddy now to talk about this. Declaration of Victory was a mechanic where your character would talk shit before a match, and you'll say, I declare that I'm going to win this in 1 round. And if you win in 1 round, you win the entire match. There's no need.
What game is this?
What?
Capcom Fighting All Stars.
No, it's not, bro.
It's the fighting game equivalent of Babe Ruth pointing to the outfield. Just holy shit.
But if you lose that round, you lose the entire match. Like it is.
You never get to play again.
Let me ask you a question. So you could just declare it without the other person's consent?
Yeah,
that's the best part.
I don't know about how detailed the mechanics are, but I read this in interviews and stuff. They're like, there's a mechanic called Declaration of Victory, and you can choose to invoke it. It's not something that anybody can do. I think you had to. I don't know how it worked in an arcade setting. Like, how does that work? But I think it's like maybe every quarter, like you have one. I don't know.
I can't even delete
so in Marvel
them.
Superheroes, right? If you want no gems, you have.
I want to know where the dining table is. I still can't find it.
1 player start and 2 players start, right? Because if you do 1 player, you get the no gems question mark. So maybe both people press start at the same time while doing the intro to do the declaration.
And if you think about it, it's better for the arcade because one round done brown and they're fucking out of here, and you just get people on the machine.
That is true. Maybe that was the thought process behind it, because it was only an arcade release. Like, while they're working on it, there was no console plans yet. See if that comes later. Yeah. But it has to be something that the other player has to either accept or decline, because that's not fair in the sense that, like, oh, you're talking shit, okay, fine, let's actually let's do this thing and accept this parlay, whatever you want to call it. It's the opposite of a parlay. It's like, we're gonna fight even harder. But I want that so bad. That's such a stupid mechanic, but it sounds so cool,
it sounds just as outrageous as like Fist of the North Star, like combos in Japan, that they just like, all right, I got my stars. If you get hit at the next round, you actually completely die. So that's crazy.
Aside from Capcom Fighting All Stars, what is like a particular game? Justin was mentioning something about World Heroes earlier, and I don't know anything about this.
So I was reading up, and I guess it wasn't like officially announced, but they had rumors of like World Heroes 64. So in arcade, they actually made a Samurai Showdown 64 game, which is really fun. This was actually my first Samurai Showdown game ever. Not 1, 2, or 4, or 3.
Can't believe this.
3D Samurai Showdown game. I was like, wow, this looks kind of cool. And then they had like the combo command grabs with Hanzo. I thought this game was sick, but you were telling me, Matt, that it didn't do so well.
The Hyper Neo Geo 64 arcade board was SNK's attempt to be like, we got to get into 3D, we got to do it. And it was a massive failure. Like, it was so expensive to make, and just no one was interested in the games. Like, they didn't, you raise people up on sprite-based games forever, and now you suddenly say like this is what we're doing. That's like
We can maybe
Capcom
this
going
one
Street
and this
Fighter
one
EX is the
instead.
future, and we're only going to make Street Fighter EX from now, and they're the mainline games. There's no other alternative or whatever, at least for a little while.
Something
I
happened.
think that was
Tarzan,
SNK what
thanks
they
for
were kind
follow.
of
Also, I
going
just realized I
for,
was supposed to trade it
and
back,
just
change it
that
back
was, like,
to.
their death blow.
Oh no, it's
almost.
not.
They lost
it's
so
all-
much money on
anyway,
this.
I can chat.
So the
Don't
only
need
thing
to
I
follow
can't
the
remember,
chat.
maybe Max knows this, but
Yeah,
I'm
thanks for
not
the
even sure
follow.
of the details.
I just
Was
still
Fatal
podcast as
Fury
I
Wild
play this
Ambition,
game.
the 3D Fatal Fury, was that on the Hyper Neo Geo 64? Is that an only PlayStation arcade thing that was on separate hardware that wasn't that? I have no clue where
Yeah,
that
that's a
game
good
comes
question.
from.
I'm not too sure either. Only thing I think I've ever seen Wild Ambition actually running on is PS1 hardware, but
Me too.
there's a lot of
same.
weird. I mean, outside of like MVS stuff, right? There's a lot of really weird. Like you said, like I don't even think I even know what a Neo Geo 64 technically looks like. So
Yeah, I don't even think they
Hello there.
there's never a unit in America.
Hello
I
there.
think it was like a Japan only thing and it failed there, so they
Oh,
didn't
no,
bother.
doggy, you
I
gotta-
think.
yeah,
No,
I'm not too sure.
we had a Chinatown Fair,
You guys.
but
Oh, jeez, you did.
Yeah, that's where I played it. Yeah, and we
Come up.
just it was just like a regular looking
You can
large
sit
cabinet.
over
It
here
wasn't
for
on
now.
like the Neo Geo cabinets that you normally see. It was on its own cabinet, and there was
You
only
can
one game.
Stay.
So that was like the really surprising take, because like all SNK games
Retreat.
growing up in arcade, to me was it was always on that red cabinet. You had to hit select game, go through the thing. But
No.
that version, that 3D version of Samurai Showdown, was by itself.
That makes sense because those old MVS cabs would probably had a pretty difficult time.
Alright, maybe
processing
how we
3D
stay
imagery
outside
from
because
like hardware that's essentially from
there's a lot of
1992
moving
or some
furniture
shit, maybe
going on.
1994. It would have looked like Star Fox.
so you can stay.
That's the thing. Whenever I can't remember ever seeing direct feed footage of these games, the Samurai Showdown one, and but I recall when they look at them, like they didn't look much better than N64 in general. And when I say N64, I mean like launch 3D N64,
Yeah.
like Mario
Yeah.
64.
Pilot wings,
Pilot wings, unicycles.
This is
Max, is there
awful.
one that you
Maybe I
wanna
shouldn't do
that
this
you
style.
kind of
Well,
know
let's
a
see
bit
what
more
I
about?
need
Want
to-
to discuss?
What kind of couch
I
do I
think
need?
that the big one for me obviously was Capcom All Stars, and we talked a bit about that. The other
Dark
tidbit
corner
of it
sofa,
that
so
I've
this is
always
where the
been
corner
sort of
sofa
hyper
would
focused
go,
on is
which
that
is this one here.
I've talked to a couple of the big guys at Capcom over the years, even from the beginning of Street Fighter V, and I've always had it in my head where it's just like at some point I would love to coerce them. If I was ever in a situation where I got to go to Japan, if not like take a tour and just look at the history of like Capcom stuff, where it's just like, yeah, I'm the biggest, stupidest fanboy ever, and then it's eventually like convince them to let me capture some footage, some like direct feed footage of the game, for that there to be something, right, like some decent
Photo
looking
tapping
like visual fidelity imagery of the long lost Capcom fighting game instead of there being literally
Right,
nothing.
it's-
But at the same point, I think even if they did that, that'll confuse people because people will be wondering where they can get it. What is it? Like, when is it coming out? And I understand like why stuff like that just can't come back because it's sort of like illegal, not
Their
illegal,
long,
but sort of just like a
furry
PR nightmare.
carpet.
Yeah, PR, exactly. Yeah.
So outside of that, I mean, the big ones that come.
Thrill kill, perchance?
Yes, I mean,
Thrill
the
kill.
big ones that come to my head, me and Matt have played a variety of times in the past.
Yeah,
And it's
I'm gonna put it
actually
here
a great
instead.
game when you think about it, and it got repurposed into a completely different game. Thrill Kill is the unreleased, insanely hyper-violent 4-player Smash Brothers brawl beat 'em up-esque quote-unquote fighting game that never came out on PlayStation because it was too gory.
Yeah. That
Right,
game
we
and that
need
developer has such an interesting
horizontal
history. It's like,
bookcase.
let's make a this game. Oh, we can't make that. Let's make a Wu-Tang
Oh,
game.
no, wait, it
Okay,
is
cool.
this thing.
And then
Horizontal
after
bookcase,
that,
right?
let's
So-
make the backyard wrestling games. And after that comes full circle. We tried to rip off Mortal Kombat, and now we're
You cut
making Mortal
XL,
Kombat Shaolin Monks.
Something set of various
Really?
that
books.
has- yeah.
That's
Or is it set of
the
various
route they
books?
took. That's crazy.
And then Max, they went backwards. Not backwards, but then it's like a lot of those guys went on to make, guess what? A little game called WWE All Stars.
Really? That's awesome.
You just like to follow along,
That's
don't
awesome.
you?
We mentioned that game every once in a while. WWE All Stars is like of my Raw wrestling games, my favorite wrestling game of all of them because it's so freaking insane and it's only on like Xbox 360 or PS3.
Is that the best one, or is the arcade one the best one?
The Midway one.
Yeah, the one that's like, those crazy exaggerated moves. That one was so good.
Those are two very different things. Like, that is a fun spectacle, the 2D Midway one.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the All Stars is like a really good hype plane fighting game.
Yeah.
It's not it's more solid, but I love both. There was a sequel to that one, In Your House, that was a console
yes, In Your
exclusive.
House, I remember
that
that.
one's kind of trash though. Like the graphics are like really downgraded, like
Yeah.
and it's weird, but Thrill Kill is just a very interesting thing. I've never actually played it. I tried to get it working once and I just couldn't find it. I tried eBaying like a
think this
burnt
is the
copy
set,
and it
so
never came. The guy just
think it's
took my
in here.
money, never showed
So,
up.
no.
so just to give like a quick breakdown of what it is, it's not a Smash-like. It's more like Power Stone,
Yeah.
where it's
Yeah.
like 3D arenas, and you could have 4 characters at the time. It's technically a console marvel, right? I'm sorry, console like eighth wonder of the world,
think this is
because
the
you
Yuka.
essentially had 4 players in an arena all fighting each other at the
Yuka.
same time on a PS1, and it was like kind of unheard of at the time. The PS1 cranking out like 4 polyed characters with polyed backgrounds, and you're
so.
doing everyone's fighting, and it's holding a frame rate that isn't like 5. It was actually super functional and relatively polished. And it has a lot of 3D-isms from the time. Characters have 10 hit strings and
Yeah.
like stun combos that lead to big things that like are practically TODs in some way. I remember looking up some combo videos on it like way back in the day when I was making the videos like 5-6 years ago now. But yeah,
What is
like,
this
it's
dining
actually
table, though?
relatively fleshed out. The problem was the tone. Like the tone was just very dark and super bleak. Like the
Like snuff film, right?
pretty much, like, yes, like the characters they had was just like a character named Cletus, which is just like this like backyard hobo looking guy with bad teeth, and he's just like, I'm gonna fuck shit up. And they had a dude that was just had his legs and arms ripped off, and he was in a straitjacket. Like,
Yeah.
like the
Oh, what?
tone of it
Yeah.
was just very like, Jesus, man. And everyone was like doing bidding from Satan to get their way back to fight from the underworld or something. So I'm like,
I mean, that's a dark game for sure.
yeah,
It's close to like in tone. It's close to like Twisted Metal or like Twisted
Yes.
Metal Black,
Yeah.
Black specifically, which came a few years later. But that was like as grimdark as you could take this sort of stuff, where
Very
the
much
art
so.
styles. And it's not like there's a little bit of humor in it. The characters are like slightly wacky, 1 or 2, but the rest of them, of all the footage I've seen, like there's a sexy dominatrix, and they
Yes.
all had different costumes, and each one was like, wow, okay, you took
Yeah.
this in a weird place.
There's an absolutely hilarious one where there's a character that is like the character that has no legs, that is just 2 upper bodies, right? So the upper body is just like a guy fighting, and the guy below them is like a head that's upside down with his legs like holding him up, and they would flip, and they would fight and change directions where one would be fighting the other. There's a special costume that you can unlock, which puts a white gi and a red headband on one, and the other half that's on the ground has a red gi and blonde hair. So it's Ken and Ryu,
Wow.
and they like change and they fight with each other. There's a lot of like crazy isms and funny jokes riddled throughout the game, but it essentially got completely canceled because at the time I think it might have been EA that was the one publishing it, and it was just not lining up with like a relatively family-friendly executive focus that they were sort of
their
going
standards.
I think it was when they signed the game, they had a different guy at the head of that decision, and then he either left or something, or he got ousted, whatever. Someone else took over the duties of on the
Hey,
EA side, and they're like, we don't want this. It's going to
welcome
actually bring
back
us too much
to
heat,
the
because this
stream.
was like 98,
How's it going?
99.
It's
That
been a
could
long
have
time
been
since I saw you.
like around that
Wow,
time where
7
people were like,
months and
I don't
falling
like the
7
violence in video
months.
games is getting like
But yeah,
pretty
doing
crazy.
fine.
And
Just
they
playing
started,
some
games started
House
getting a lot of
Supper
heat
and
for a
listen
lot
to
of
some
real
music.
world shit
I would
going
have
on.
music live
So
up to a
I think that
podcast.
might be the main reason, but that game like released in Europe pretty much, where so many people on
Yeah, almost
someone
a
on the
year.
dev team leaked it. They just said here,
Well,
the game
more
is
than
pretty
half a
much
year.
done,
That's how I played it. It's essentially like
Yeah.
a leaked ISO.
and it was just burnt so much that a lot of like fans on like my YouTube channel at
missing
least, they're
something.
like,
Oh, the bottom
this,
side.
this released. What are you talking about? I had like a
bought it at
copy
my
of this.
store.
Yeah, exactly. There's stores and copies because they just got burnt so much and passed around so much that some people were like, "No, this came out. What are you talking about?" I'm like, "What? What?" And
Yeah.
I never grew up ever seeing it. I just heard that it was canceled.
It's even more so than like a Star Fox 2 situation, like a game that was nearly completed,
didn't
like
get
for the
the
most
double
part.
bed
Like this game was
up here.
done. Like there is very, I from what I
This is the
remember
double
playing
bed.
through it, all the characters had big
The whole
CG
thing.
endings. You know, there was an arcade mode for
Yeah.
every
Are
single
you- I'm doing
character. It had a
alright.
variety of modes and crazy like gimmick modes
Got
that
my
you could play
last
through. It was
day
a
of
full
my,
ass game.
oh,
So
jeez.
100% finished.
Dog gave me a bit
So
of
I
a
had
spook
to
a
look
bit.
it up because the way you're describing this game is like super rare, impossible to
Wait,
get.
why can't
So
I
one, I was trying
put
to
it
look for
down
no
here?
DC Bear,
Something in the
couldn't
way?
find it there.
Cannot let me.
right? But then I was like, let me check eBay. It's actually not that bad. It's only $50 on eBay if you want to buy the Thrill Kill, or like an official.
If you want to
copy.
get a thrill,
If you
Well,
wanna
on
get-
official
Alright, focus
copy.
away.
Yeah, that's essentially some dude just put it on a CD. Some guy
Yeah,
just like
so-
burned it to a CD.
Even has like a little. You know how you have like the little poster or whatever? It has a poster with it too.
Yeah,
What do I need
it
up
had
here?
been started, dude.
Oh,
It
the
had
cat
everything.
tree
Like
and
it,
the
the game
bedside
was ready to
tables.
release, right? Artwork for it. It has like the logo. It was in magazines.
Yeah.
Like all of us remember seeing it when it was there, and then suddenly it just didn't come out. And there was always a rumor of like, why didn't it come out? And that's so like the big thing of the video that I was talking about was that it was this big
What
friggin'
are you
mystery.
listening to? Or people?
Where'd
No,
the
I'm,
Tokyo
I'm
game
listening to
go?
a
What the
podcast
shit?
right now. I'm listening to
I hope
the
that's
triple
that was the
the
name.
triple KO podcast. It's a fighting game podcast. So because like I'm into fighting games, I'm always interested in like hearing like you know prolific people in the fighting game community, and to hear them talk about fighting game, well, things about fighting games. Right now they're talking about canceled fighting games, which is the fighting games that were supposed to come out, but unfortunately got canceled for many other reasons. So yeah, they're just talking about examples and such.
Name of it. It was a fighting history, was it not?
It was, yeah.
Okay. So do either of you know anything about the 3D DC fighting game that was canceled in like 2008?
No,
Oh, this
I do
isn't-
not.
This isn't related to the Double Helix game,
It is the Double Helix game.
is it? Was that actually a fighting game?
So when the initial attempt to make Justice League a movie by the director of Mad Max, George Miller, DC were this close. They had people in costumes. They were about to film the movie. So let's get a video game going. So Double Helix were in charge of this, and the game was essentially a 3D fighting game where you could like wander around an arena a little bit and do
yeah.
stuff like that. But you were fighting waves of enemies, and then you're fighting against a boss, and it was one-on-one. And it's hard to describe. It's like a third-person game where the camera's behind you and kind of follows you, but, you know, all your strikes are like melee and stuff, and when you would go against the boss, it would be like 2 life bars and everything.
Right.
Then they had a whole versus suite, where you had a bunch of heroes, a bunch of villains, you're locked in an arena, let's go.
Stardust
And then when the
Photo
movie
by
fell
Forge.
apart, they're like, they should have just released it. Like, what's the difference? The movie came out. It's still marketable characters.
Oh, it has 4 doors.
Yeah.
So then Double Helix were like, okay, well,
That was
what are we
heavy.
going to do? There's full footage of this game, like matches and stuff. And it actually looks quite interesting. Like, I would play this. And it's just weird to see a game of this era and it not be MK versus DC, because that's what you think of, either Injustice or this, but this was like before Injustice. So then they had to scramble. Oh, there's a Green Lantern movie coming out. Let's repurpose all of this. So they repurposed animations and everything, and they just scrapped like Wonder Woman, Superman, Batman, all this stuff, and they just made like a really mediocre
really
Green
space for
Lantern
Oh, so
game.
that's
I
how
need to
Green Lantern
push things to
existed.
the-
Okay.
Side
this,
here.
you can find full matches of this game on YouTube. There's a great video by Liam Robertson on Unseen 64 where he kind of dives into this game a bit more deep and what they're trying to do. And that game, like when I look at footage of it, I'm like, this looks cool. I would have been hyped for this because
Oh, 'cause
at
of the
that
cat-
point,
cat
it's been a
thing
long
here.
time since there was a DC fighting game since Justice
Force.
League.
Justice League Task Force. I love
Is
that
it-
game.
Is it sort of similar to the other 3D comic book fighters around the time, like Marvel Rise of the Imperfects and stuff like that?
It's the camera's like more locked in behind your character, but it does play like that where it's a bit more Power Stony, where
Yeah.
like an arena fighter, you know. But
It's more
it looks
like,
better.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. It's more like the Naruto stuff for like GameCube.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where it's like 3D and it has like, you know, life bars, and you have your super bars, you build it and everything like that. It has like the dashes, you know, how to like kind of like avoid people and everything like that. It looks really good, actually. Just like looking at it, I would play it for sure.
What stinks is that the single
It's
player
t-
part
this has
wasn't
to be the
really
dining
done.
table,
Like they
right?
still had cinematics and things to finish, but the
But it doesn't
versus
count for some
component was
reason,
like
so I
locked
think it
in.
might
Like
be the
they
thing
had
on
everything they
top
needed
of
for
here,
that. I'm like,
actually.
that stinks at that part.
Yeah.
Like I would have.
Yeah,
like,
it
if
is.
that
Okay,
could
so
ever come
this needs to
about
go up
again,
there.
I don't know if Warner Brothers would ever be down for this, but if you could just take that
Then
and
these
make it a
big
demo
poofy
like our
things also go up there.
Capcom All Stars
Yeah.
idea, that would have been sick. I would have
Well,
loved
don't
to play
worry, Matt. There is a game that's coming out. It's called
this.
Multiverses.
Multiverses,
And
it's
that's
true.
gonna be the new version of like the arena fighter for maybe Justice League, or at least have some more Justice League characters. I think only Batman and Harley Quinn are. in it.
Wonder
Superman's in it.
Superman,
Superman's in it for sure.
Superman. So there you
Yeah.
go. You got your, you know, your
And
Justice
definitely
League.
more to
It's there.
come.
It's there. Do you guys remember the Marvel
Wait, I can
fighting
take
game,
this
the
ladder
3D
and go
Marvel
up there.
fighting game that got canceled? That was supposedly a sequel to Marvel Nemesis.
No, I don't think I've seen that one at
No.
all.
It's called Marvel Chaos.
Marvel Chaos.
It has a very 1930s.
Oh wait,
comic
is
book
this the
aesthetic.
dining? Oh my god, the dining table was here.
And
It
they
was
had,
just
like, the
flipped.
old-timey, like, wonders of the world, Marvel characters fighting it out, and they had Doom, Hulk, Captain America, and it was like a big block of city streets where you can fight, and it was a lot of physics-based destruction. So you could launch guys through buildings, and the buildings would be destroyed in a realistic way, and it was very free roaming. But this was announced back in the day, like 2008, 2009, and it didn't even have a working title. Like, it was just called Marvel Fighting Game, and it was like EA Chicago Studios following up with this, and then like a few months later it was just canceled. I think Marvel and EA just couldn't, they felt this deal wasn't coming together, that this is getting too expensive, and then bam, who gets the Marvel license right after that? Capcom, and they make a little game called Marvel vs. Capcom 3 just
Yeah.
like 2 years later.
Because MVC3, you have to think, it came out in 2011, right? Like
Yeah.
MVC3 was technically already in development when Street Fighter 4 was released, like in 2009. Like, it had to have been. So those deals were probably put into place like right after that game sunk, and they're like, well, this didn't work out. Let's go see who else is available, type of thing.
Yeah, well, just to also reiterate, Max, this would be made by the developers of Def Jam Icon.
Oh,
Ooh.
well, we certainly dodged a bullet there.
I think what they're going for was like, this was supposed to be huge production value, like spectacle. Like, yeah, you could launch guys into buildings and the buildings crumble down.
Yeah.
Like, that's the type of scale that they're going for. And as long as the fighting was like serviceable and there's like a story mode with some cutscenes, I think that would have been fine.
Still
But
gotta do the
from
bathroom as
everything
well.
I read, that Chicago studio that EA had, this was the studio, by the way, was headed up by Kudo Tsunoda, if you remember from the Kinect.
Oh,
What does the
that guy?
bottom of an avatar's feet look like? Bam.
Yeah.
That guy. This was his studio. This is what he was doing before the Kinect.
Dude, holy. And this, I mean, it sounds cool, but it sounds cool only if you launch people into buildings, there's a human casualty counter, right? Like, the human casualty element is how we balance our game.
But when I saw footage of this initially, like the little trailer, I remember I was on GameTrailers.com. That's a little bit of a flashback, and I remember seeing the trailer being, oh, that looks pretty cool. Like, that looks a much more comic booky and fun than like Marvel Nemesis. I played Marvel Nemesis again a few weeks back, and I was like, man, there's some ideas here, but this just doesn't come together. I don't like this art style. The character selection is weird, stuff like that. But I always wanted to play this. It was either called just Marvel Fighting Game, but I saw in a few circles it was called Marvel Chaos, which is not like the best name I could think.
It's interesting. Obviously, you could tell like it's not completed from the gameplay, but man, just looking at the gameplay itself and seeing Juggernaut with that belly is like the most
That's the shot I
funniest
saw. Juggernaut, like,
thing
just
in the
bare chested.
world. hairy belly, and I'm like, bro, my man drinking lots of beer before he came into the fight.
That's
For
how he
sure.
became the Juggernaut. The funny thing about like the history of Marvel and like fighting games in general is that they do have obviously like the old history, the 90s history, when Marvel really wasn't an entity in many ways, where they were just like, we need money, so the Capcom got them and they did a whole bunch of crazy stuff with it. But around like the mid 2000s, there's a lot of crazy efforts through EA and like the ones that you mentioned, where they try to like make their shit work in a 3D space, like with like modern day graphics outside of the old 2D graphics.
I still don't know what
Trying to
goes
get
on
away
that
from
screen.
the old visual style.
Yeah.
And they hit their strides in some ways. Like Marvel 3 did okay. Like Marvel 3 Vanilla did okay. Ultimate didn't do so good until years later, where it actually sold, so it didn't really matter. But where Marvel eventually hits their stride and eventually gets to the point where they're like, we need a big ass smash hit. We need a game with a fighting game with all these characters. Like, what the hell? Like, we need to do something. It's technically Contest of Champions.
Yeah.
Wait, that's the mobile game.
It is, but it's a mobile fighting game, 100%.
Isn't there another one called Future Fight? Is that
Future
also a
Fight?
fight game?
I don't think that's a fighting game. I think those are
Okay.
like
It's a card
slightly
base.
different. But
Yeah,
I know
think
the
one of them
Contest
was
of
a card-based
Champions
one, yeah.
like made $1 billion only a couple of years after it was out or something like that. It's still being updated to this day. It came out in like 2014 or some shit. It's like, wow, dude. Anyway, not a canceled game, a very fluicious, flowing, money-driven game that still exists to this day.
I mean, who doesn't want to pay for Marvel characters? I mean, like, I would pay for Marvel characters if I had to get Storm. You know, if she's not free, I'll pay for it.
If it's the character you want, they're like, hey, Max, would you want, I don't know, like Strider is like an available character in this Marvel game. It's like a Capcom collaboration, or just even Wolverine, or Venom. But Eddie, I've never really understood this, because I've never talked to anyone that makes these decisions on a grander level. Is there any problem with taking a really successful mobile fighting game and adapting it for consoles, redoing the microtransactions, whatever it needs to be? You made $1 billion there. Why, the game is essentially done. You have to like rejigger a lot of things, but what is the thought process behind, I want to play as this combination of Venom and Deadpool,
Right,
and he's
that's
only in your
everything.
mobile game, but I don't want
Still
to play a
can't
fighting game
throw
on
away
mobile
these
screen 'cause
pallets
that's
though. I
trash.
wish I could throw
Yeah.
away these pallets, but I can't.
Can I not play this on a controller, sir? And I know people are going to say, you can play this with
Oh,
a
I can
little
sell that.
controller Bluetooth on your phone. I ain't doing that.
Yeah.
I want to
Alright,
play it
well,
on my
we're done
console.
here.
But is there any thought process? Have you ever talked to anybody like on a business level, Max, as to why these types of things don't happen?
I think it's just like they're completely separate entities, you know. The only time we've ever seen that sort of happen is technically
The
with
pallets
like
are still there,
NRS,
my
and I
doggy.
guess God, I'm forgetting their name, the Power Rangers developers.
Anyway,
Thank you. And with NRS, obviously, like they did the Injustice mobile fighting game before Contest of Champions. That was like 2013, where there was like a tie-in and like a gimmicky tap the screen and things sort of happen, right, sort of thing. And they shared a similar dev studio, and I think they still do to this day, where like Injustice Mobile, if not Mortal Kombat Mobile, are still being developed like in-house right
Really?
next to the other devs. Like I remember visiting NRS's studio for MK11, and yeah, we passed by the mobile division, and I'm like, holy shit, they're right there. That's crazy. At least with Enway, because granted, those games don't share much of a, like, they should. Like, that's what I'm saying, is that you're absolutely right. There should be like a mobile version of a fighting game and like the console version, and they share and they help each other out.
Exactly,
Right? Like,
yeah.
It feels like that should just be the thing. Like that should just, that you could unlock things on mobile that give you stuff on console. Like that should just be a thing. At least with
I never
Enway,
done
when
this
they
with my
did
dogs before,
Power
so I
Rangers,
don't know
they
what you're
had
supposed to
Power
do.
Rangers Legacy
Just
Wars,
tug
which
on
was
it.
essentially
Just-
a mobile fighting
just
game
tug of war.
with Power Rangers characters that fight each other in a very similar fashion to like Contest of Champions, Injustice, Mortal Kombat type stuff. But they eventually did make a console game, right? A 3v3 tag game.
Yeah.
Using a lot of the assets and animations and stuff, but just tuned up a little bit.
Let's see
But still,
if you
obviously,
need
like
to take
Power
a
Rangers still looks like an
shower.
upscaled sort of mobile game in many ways, with just much better resolution and textures. Like they obviously like polished it up a bit. And that one was like, oh yeah, this is kind of like the fighting game console equivalent of Legacy Wars. do they? I mean, they literally have Ryu and Chun,
Already
right?
clean,
The same thing that they had before. But do they do anything with it? They don't, right? They don't eventually. They don't eventually have any tie-in to the mobile version.
Yeah, I think the only thing is like maybe the character sprites just look similar, just like you were saying, they just polished up a bit more. But overall, they're completely different. It doesn't use a card system compared to Battlefield Grid, where it's very motion input heavy, execution touch of death, as you can see, or if you guys search on YouTube for like combos and stuff. But I think maybe more now, so for the future, modern mobile games are going to have probably a Steam version. You know, maybe not. I don't know about fighting games, but there are some mobile games that have a Steam version or a PC port version.
I see what you mean.
People can play.
And we recently saw that with KOF All Star, where they're like, "Hey, yeah, you know what we should make." Anyway, we're getting on a massive tangent here, massive. But yeah, I completely agree with you.
But there is, because you mentioned the Injustice mobile game and stuff. Do you remember WWE Immortals, which NRS worked on?
I remember that, yeah.
It was a mobile game, and it was like a dark Mortal Kombat aesthetic, but it was with WWE wrestlers, and all of them had different scary horror personas. Like there were warlords and barbarians, and like it looked like an NRS game, like circa like 2013, 2014. And I wanted that on console so bad. I was like,
yeah, yes, I wanted WWE Immortals to be like a real console
stupid wrestlers in a fighting game again, because it's been so long. It had been a couple of years since All Stars. So.
Did that get canned, or did that actually come out?
No, that came out. There's footage of it. They have finishing moves. They're not violent. They're more like Injustice 1 levels of,
Jimmy thought the whole point being a musician is to party after kids.
Like, man,
there's too many voices going on. Okay, let me pause it for a while. His cat playing on the piano changed his outlook. The sound ignited Jimmy's creativity. Why not use it in the song? He brought a few friends to his new passion project, Meowing Stones, as they call themselves. Moved to a new house in the country to find a sound and shake the music scene. Alright, so musician with cats. How about this house? Home clinic. Saving the life of his kitty, Oakley, was a turning point in Alan's life. He decided it's never too late to start a career, and he enrolled in veterinary school shortly after his 32nd birthday. Now an experienced vet, he's planning to move to a cozy village with his family to help his old pal Morgan. He even found a perfect place to open a home clinic, after some necessary adjustments, of course. Well, this guy is doing some good service, so let's do him first. A dog still looks like a human fingerprint, unique.
I heard the news, and I'm all in for the idea of Morgan's pet care. The house is more than enough for a family with a cat. So I count on you to prepare a separate space for my home clinic. The first floor seems to be perfect for that. That's why I will need some basic equipment in there. I'll bring the specialized instruments with me later on. I have no clue what to do with the rest of the rooms, though my wife made a to-do list, so you should be fine. I'm sure it will turn out nicely. Good luck.
Oh, we got a model on again. Oops, sorry. Alright.
No, I just saw John Cena do this in his little Flash Superman outfit.
Okay, yeah, you can't see him because he's the Flash. He's so fast.
So yeah, I actually never played this game, but damn, this game looks kind of sick though. Not gonna lie.
I know, it's a shame. But yeah, I think Max hits it on the head where it's the divisions are too separated and they don't think about this stuff ahead of time. They don't we could rejigger this for it. Just the conversations just don't work out that way. But with WWE mentioned, WWE Brawl was straight up Power Stone with WWE characters, where they were all again more exaggerated. They had like superpowers, armor. The final boss was Vince McMahon in a mecha suit.
Oh, so they took Simpsons.
Pretty much.
They made Tech Mr. Burns and Tech Vince McMahon.
Exactly. So he's in a giant mecha, and you could pick up stuff in the arena, throw at it. It was something like 75% done. They had like a fully playable build of it with a couple of characters. and then this was under THQ, by the way, so it was like a couple of years back, well, like 10 years back, and I saw this, I was like, oh my god, that's what I wanted, because at this time, we're just getting the WWE sim fighting games, wrestling games, right? And it's not what I wanted. I want, that's great for if you want that, but I want an arcadey thing. And if you look at footage of this, and there's lots of match footage out there and concept arts for all the characters, and I'm just like, oh man, like, you could take almost any franchise and be like, you know, a Power Stone version of it.
Yeah.
And you don't have to think about the same logistics as a fighting game does when it's like 1v1 locked 2D plane or even 3D. When it's an arena fighter, it's so much more accessible. Pick up boxes and items and pick up power-ups, and you have like a flashy super, and the mechanics are sound, but it's so much easier in my head, at least. I don't know how accurate that is, where it's like WWE or superheroes or anime. That's why it works for so many anime games, for anime arena fighters, is because it's very easy template to get into, and I just wanted that so bad for WWE.
It's the thing that makes games like Power Stone, those arena games where it's just like, okay, so you can interact with like a metric shit ton of stuff. And you can throw a metric shit ton of stuff. And we're also going to throw in items almost at random that do a shit ton of stuff. And then you have Power Stones that also change the way the game plays completely. It's one of those experiences where like there's always going to be something crazy different that happens at any given time. Like the amount of freedom that the natural mechanics of the game are allowing is what makes Power Stone like 1 and even 2 to a degree like really fun. Like that's what those games are about. And it's weird that not a ton of games, like outside of obviously Smash Brothers, set up for things like that, you know?
Yeah, and like out of all the anime fighters, arena fighters, I'm like, this is fine, you know, My Hero Academia or like Naruto, cool. I'm like, can we get one that's on an anime that I'm super hyped? Can we get a Berserk, please? Can we get Trigun? Like anything. I know these are older things. Everyone's like, oh, you grumpy old man. I don't care. I want my older animes that have no.
You're gonna get Sword Art Online and you're gonna like it.
I think the closest thing where you can get like those kind of more obscure animes is that from that one game, the one with Sword Art Online characters, Dengoki. You know what was that? I don't know.
Dengeki Burning Climax?
Yeah, that one, because it has a bunch of like random anime characters that's not really part of like main anime.
That has Akira from Virtua Fighter in it.
Yeah, it does. It's a 2D game. But Matt, what is the name of the crazy ass Smash-like GameCube game that has like Optimus Prime and Bleach?
TV World Mix Dream Fighters.
Thank you. There's the game that you want, right? Just not in the quality that you may be looking for.
So remember, that has Optimus Prime versus Solid Snake versus Simon Belmont versus Yugo the Wolf from Bloody Roar.
It does.
Who's your money on?
Simon Belmont.
Really?
Simon Belmont.
What's he gonna do against Optimus Prime?
No, Simon Belmont. If you throw a vial of holy water on Optimus Prime is just gonna melt.
Oh, you think it's just gonna be like regular appliance, like you throw a toaster in a tub of water or something?
I think so. That's my headcanon. TV Dream Mix World Fighters. I'm sure I got that out of order. I played that like once, and it's like cool. And the arena fighter is kind of like, you know, like the other divergent path from Smash, or like, you know, versus platformers versus, you know, you're in a 3D arena, you can go in any direction, versus Smash Bros. Where it's like, you know, like you can go in 4 directions essentially.
Yeah.
And I just find that template is not used, like it's used for anime and then that's it.
Yeah.
The arena fighter, and I'm just like, I don't know why more companies don't get on this. Where I'm like, that's very accessible to mainstream fans and hardcore fans. As long as the game is solid, they'll check it out. But
and guess who started that genre? Guess which game began that genre?
What, arena fighters or Smash?
Pretty much arena fighters. Not the 2D Smash fighters, but the arena anime games.
Thrill Kill?
No, Sega started it.
Sega with what? With what game? Sonic Battles?
Sonic Fighters? No, I think this game maybe predates Sonic Fighters.
Oh God. The robot game.
Temjin. Viper. Virtual On.
Virtual On, yeah, okay,
Virtual
yeah.
On.
I couldn't think
Personal
of its
favorite of
name.
mine. Yeah.
It is. It like, what year did Virtual On actually come? It was like 96, 97?
Let's look it up. It's an old ass Model 2 game, man. But
It's
that
Model 2,
cabinet is ancient. Virtual
Oh, it's a
On. Let me see
garage.
when
The Model
it
4 is a
debuted.
garage.
Because
Oh, is Virtual On like one of those big cabinets?
1995.
5.
Yeah.
That has to be the first.
It says first release Cyber Troopers 1995, and then it shows up in some arcades.
so
It's
the
technically
plumbing.
1996. It's kind of confusing, but anyway,
Oh,
1995. Ancient game.
I've never seen an official Virtual On arcade cabinet, but looking at it, it has like those two like
Right,
kind of
nothing
like
to sell here.
Yeah, you're
like a
piloting a
series.
mech.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of cool though.
It's awesome.
All these
Virtual On
tire
is always a
tracks.
personal big favorite of mine. Anyway, we are going deep here. Matt,
Okay.
we have to
Going
talk
so
about
deep.
one of the greatest canceled fighting games of all time, Primal Rage 2.
Oh,
Primal Rage 2. I get a lot of people when they look at Primal Rage 2, it's not what I want. I want dinosaurs and you're humans. And I'm like, I have two arguments for you. A, Primal Rage 2 plays 1,000 times better than Primal Rage 1 because it just has normal command motions. It
Yeah.
doesn't have hold down buttons, do like pretzels that'll make SNK blush,
Yeah.
and then let go. Primal Rage plays uniquely, and I get that, but also remember Primal Rage 2 has secret characters where it's the reverse. You can just get the dinosaur character model, the sprite, and then they turn into the humans just for their super moves. So you literally have both
Just
sets
live up for this.
of things. And
Oh,
when
I can
played
build
Primal
max amount
Rage
of
2,
walls.
I just thought
Perfect.
like, man, this plays so much easier. It's so much easier to
Whoa.
remember. It
Right,
it
and
looks
it's,
goofy in the
do
human
this.
characters sort of expressions and their
then
modeling looks a
this.
little weird, but I still
Oh, it makes
wanted
everything
that
so
to
much
come out
easier.
at least to consoles at least, and at least it lives on in Galloping Ghost, you know.
Yeah, so like the crazy history behind it is that it does exist, right? It's one of those games that was nearly, I don't know how much percentage is completed. I'm sure Doc could tell us from Galloping Ghost.
I think it's just certain characters don't have fatalities. That's
Oh,
pretty
really?
much it,
Wow.
and maybe some balancing
So like
issues.
the
But
fluff stuff, the very ending polished stuff.
yeah. I
So
think
where
that's
did you guys play this?
So
Primal Rage
it is that I believe it has eventually been dumped, right? Where somebody was able to get the ROM off of the motherboard. But you could only, from what I understand, you can only play it at Galloping Ghost because Galloping Ghost is in the Midwest where the game was developed, and they eventually got through the category of developers that might have made the game and found somebody that actually had a board.
had a
What do I
board,
need
yeah.
to build here?
So
Wow.
it was a
Okay.
full ass arcade game, and here's the thing: there was no documentation. I remember
Yeah.
watching streams from Galloping Ghost where they were essentially trying to figure out special moves and combos because there's
Yeah.
no documentation. So they just had to like grind the game and just look for shit. And eventually they would find like some crazy stuff, either finishers or something, where it's just like, oh, found this, and they have like, I think they actually have like a document at Galloping Ghost as things are discovered. They print out new moves as they find them.
I
That's
want more of
actually
these
kind of
brick
cool. That means
stuff.
that okay. So if I'm able to go to Combo Breaker, I gotta go visit there. To
Oh,
go
yeah.
Play Primal
Oh,
Rage
if you're
2.
you have to
Oh.
go to Galloping Ghost then
If
because
you've never been, it'll be one of the greatest experiences of your life.
I seen pictures of that, and it's just literally like a big ass hallway of arcade cabinets.
It is the last great arcade.
But like,
Yeah.
like they have a lot of fighting games. Like I think they have the arcade version of BioFreaks, which like
Oh wow, yeah.
was not even a thing. Like that never got released officially in arcades. But like the console versions were a thing because they scrapped the arcade plans and made like a console version. They have like a Beavis and Butthead game that was also like canceled, but they found the boards. They're just
They found
finding
it.
boards.
What's that show? What's that show where they go into like different people's like, I guess locks and they
Storage
Storage
Wars.
Wars.
Yeah,
Bro, they did
that is Doc, the
That's what
super
Doc
nice
does?
dude that runs Galloping Ghost and has been collecting arcade stuff. That is essentially his life. Is the Storage Wars equivalent of just searching for old arcade shit.
Oh my god, that's so cool.
Yeah, and lots of like Midway, well, yeah, essentially older Midway employees, like the actors that played in Mortal Kombat, like 1 to 3, like all the actors, like they'll
Yeah.
show up there for autograph signings because there's like
Wow.
a lot of a lot of like old Midway employees still live around there or visit at least to do like autograph signings and shit.
Yeah, I think we this is like 2018, but we went there and we just told Doc that we would be showing up and we let everybody know that we'd be there. And I think actually you were there that same day, Matt, right?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah, we were. We just had to separate our asses because the arcade got so fucking hot. Like,
yeah.
There were so many humans in there that it was ridiculous. And then all the Mortal Kombat actors show up, and I'm like, holy shit, this is insane.
No, dude, that sounds like a great day right there.
It was, yeah.
Yeah. So Primal Rage, I think like now it's like there's a special version of MAME that's like called MAME 2 Rage. Someone had made it because the games had this weird copy protection when they were developing it for arcades. They made it so that like if it wasn't like running on an official board, it wouldn't display the graphics properly, like on purpose. So people had to finagle it a little bit.
I just realized I think I have another game, unless you have another topic of.
Oh no, go ahead. Go ahead.
And this is one that's a personal story because I know the game was near completion, like pretty much done. And it never came out, and I had asked the devs directly back in E3, I think either 2013 or 2014. I had a nice little dinner with Robin Beanland, who is the audio producer slash the music guy, one of the music guys behind Killer Instinct 1 and 2. And I remember hitting him up and asking him and Ken Lobb, what happened to KI2 on Super Nintendo? Because that was going to be a thing. Like before, the KI is on console has a crazy history of like initially KI1 was going to be on N64 and that got scrapped, and then they had to like downport the hell out of it to put it on Nintendo.
I assume this is like the waiting
they were still going to make KI on N64,
clinic,
but
right?
then turns out the N64 couldn't handle KI because it was mostly 2D graphics, and the N64 wasn't really good at that.
Or give me the couch over here.
And then eventually they were just like, well, the KI1 was really popular. We're just going to put KI2 on Super Nintendo. And then that doesn't work out because like, well, we got to put something on N64 now, and they like port it to N64. But the question was, KI2 on SNES was mostly done, and this was like a finished version of a game. And I asked him about it, so I'm like, so does that exist in some way? And I remember them telling me it was pretty much finished, like ready to go, and then was immediately scrapped because they had to make an N64 version.
It's the exact same situation as Star Fox 2,
Literally
where they were almost done on the Super Nintendo, and then Nintendo was like, we don't want a game on the Super Nintendo competing with the launch of our new hardware and new games there, so we need people to move over, which is a fair business thing to think about, but at the same time, release it. You know, and they did with Star Fox, but never. We might have talked about this briefly. But one of the Stamper brothers, I think, that owned or still own Rare, whatever, he showed a picture of himself on Twitter with a bunch of hardware and like cartridges, and there's one that says KI2 Super Nintendo on it.
That might have been where it originally came from.
I know it was rumored for a while, but no one knew about how much it existed. But like some guy at Rare has a cart.
I'm sure it exists.
Yeah, and that's what I had to ask, like Ken, because Ken now works at Microsoft and has been there for a long time, and Microsoft owns Rare, right? So how much of old Rare technically exists at MS? And I would ask him and even Robin, who still works at Rare, does music for Sea of Thieves and stuff, is incredible. And from what he understands, from what I asked them about it, they're like, they wish it existed, but from what they know, it was never actually made into a ROM and dumped onto a cart. Like it never even got to that phase where it was technically like, you know, complete to the point where they could do that. So I mean, but that's the thing. There's a lot of different hands, and there's a lot of different. The Stampers were also different, like executive sort of branch of what was going on. How much they were working directly because they were Rare was huge at the time. They'd already made Donkey Kong, like 3 fucking Donkey Kong games that were multi-million sellers. Like their hands and their attention were in many places. So I wish, man, like I wish the Stampers or somebody or whoever might be at Rare or ex-Rare employees maybe have it in some way. But from what I know, all the people that are still employed, that are still in the industry, are like, nope, doesn't exist. Wish it did. I made the music for it. You know, I worked my ass off, did that stuff, like played the game, but you can't. It isn't something you can actually get.
And and it's not even something that Nintendo owns. So if Nintendo made like another like Super Nintendo Mini 2, I don't even know if that's why they couldn't even do that.
And even Microsoft was gracious enough to give us technically every version of KI2 that exists, right?
Yeah, except that one.
Except that one, like that you can still play N64 KI Gold on an Xbox, and then
It's
you can
so
also
weird.
play KI2 Arcade, which is a different game for the most part. So all of them but the one, you know.
Any other in your research, Justin? Any other games that you've seen pop up in terms of cancellations that you want to give a shout out to, or?
So one game we talked about in the previous episode about fighting game bosses.
Yeah.
We fought the General in Kaiser Knuckles. So they actually made a sequel called Dankuga. It's an unreleased title, and you know it added the new mechanics, new comp system. They added
I've never heard of this.
The two bosses, Gonzalez and Azteca, where they're playable now. And the crazy part was I've been playing this game for the last year. And what I mean by that is there's a Fightcade tournament community, and they run tournaments for this game. And literally, you know, when the guy was trying to get me to enter the tournaments, he described it as it's another Street Fighter clone. So you know, just you'll be good at it. So I played it and I realized, wow, this is actually another Street Fighter clone. And the crazy part was I played Dankuga before I ever played Kaiser Knuckle. And the only reason why I ever played Kaiser Knuckle is because of Dankuga, because people would talk to me, you gotta play Kaiser Knuckle because the general is blah blah blah. But this game never released in arcades, but it was leaked and it lives through emulators at the moment.
That's super cool. I didn't know that there was, because Kaiser Knuckle, it's called Kaiser Knuckle in Japan, but its much worse American name is Global Champion.
Yeah, Global Champion.
I'm falling asleep just by hearing Global
nice and
Champion.
broad name,
Yeah.
you know, covers a lot of different things with very little to say.
Yeah, and I think the crazy part about Dankuga is like when you like search it on YouTube, like let's say you put like Dankuga playthrough and everything like that, all you really get to see is like online matches on Fightcade, right? So it's clearly in one of those situations where like only like kind of like the hardcore, like I guess like competitive scene are like more likely playing it than more of the casual scene that probably never knew of that this ever existed.
Right, and this is essentially like Breaker's Revenge to Breakers, where it's essentially the same game. It just has like added bosses and some tweaks and stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty much added mechanics. You know, I guess like combos are much more fluid. They have more of like an air combo system as well, just and also like breaking walls. But unfortunately, there's no general. There's no hard boss. The game actually ends once you beat Azteca. So that's the unfortunate part.
Do you know if that's because it wasn't done, or they were just like too many people were complaining about the general, so we just got rid of him?
Actually, I'm not too sure about like the bosses or anything. It's just, I guess like it's more of just like this was an update for, I guess the characters itself.
So I'm gonna throw one at you guys. Studio Gigante, headed up by John Tobias, who made Tao Feng, Fist of the Lotus, made a playable Star Wars fighting game for the PS2 and the Xbox. There's video footage of this, of Anakin Skywalker fighting a shirtless, sweaty Darth Maul.
What?
And it is like, I think it had like kind of full 3D movement in an arena, but they attempted this. They were gonna try to sell it to LucasArts, and they did not bite for whatever reason. But I had no idea about this until today, that there's video footage of a match, and I'm just like, how did I not know? It doesn't even have a name, but please God, I wish it was called Star Wars Masters of Terras Kasi 2. But it's just called Star Wars Fighting Game.
Oh, that game's so bad.
How are we in this specific universe where there is really like no Star Wars fighting game directly after Terras Kasi? Like there technically, like the Revenge of the Sith game has like a fighting game mode and stuff like that, but it's not focused around that. It's like a bonus thing.
There is kind of one on the Wii. It was called like Lightsaber Battles, and it was like two 3D
Lightsaber battles, though.
It is two 3D characters fighting, but it's it's required. No, I think it's required, but it's all waggle. Like it's just like we have to make a waggling Star Wars fighting game, and its aesthetic is based on the CG cartoons of that like time frame.
Right.
So it's like
Clone
the
Wars
three,
stuff.
the Clone Wars stuff, but like not the 2D animated one, like the 3D one that came later.
Okay.
And it had a bunch of characters, but like it kind of came and went, and it was made by the devs of the Wii versions of Force Unleashed, so I think it was like solid, but I never played it enough to know. But the fact that this was at least attempted and it just for some reason didn't, I think it came out maybe a bit too long after Revenge of the Sith, so maybe they thought like, let's just cool it on Star Wars games for a bit, or at least that continuity, at least the movie universe. Let's focus on what we're doing right now, which is the cartoon stuff. Maybe, but like I'm so sad when I learned about this, because Studio Gigante, after Tao Feng, they were trying their hardest to get anything picked up by a publisher, and they didn't survive very long after this.
That was the early days of Xbox, where they were just like, we'll take anything. Anybody wants to put anything on our big dank green VCR, you can do it.
Star Wars would have been pretty good, but yeah, this sucks that we didn't get an official Star Wars fighting game after the PS1 version. But look, I was actually shown this the other day because I did a playthrough of Master of Terras Kasai, and then somebody in the chat told me that there is a fan-made Star Wars fighting game called Force Combat, and
and it's recently developed too.
So good, it even has Rey from the latest character from the movies. And it looks so good.
It's an unapologetic fan game. Just look, we're just gonna take assets, like one of those like epitome of moments of like, don't give a shit, don't tell anyone you're developing it, don't give them the opportunity to cancel it, and then there's a shit ton of characters and a shit ton.
It looks so good.
I have to play it on stream at some point because it doesn't look terrible. It looks janky, right? Granted, it's a fan-made game, but still, it's like wow. Wow,
it's
this would be amazing. The next... Go ahead, Matt.
I was going to say, I'm looking at footage of this now, and this does remind me of a lot of fan games you'll see on Steam, where it has the same type of like models and assets taken from like maybe like texture packs and stuff. But aside from that, it's still, you're right. It still kind of looks solid. Like, it doesn't look too bad.
Yeah, I definitely got to get my hands on it and see how it actually plays, like what the heck their like intention is gameplay wise, what the gimmicks of the game are and stuff like that. I'm very curious.
Because it's made by one person, so that's like the crazy.
Only wants 8
because
anyway.
the only way Star Wars technically existed in a polished, like released format that is a thing in a fighting game.
Oh, I guess they wanted the other side to be paid
minor fashion.
Decided
to be
the ceramic.
And we actually got to experience 3D combat with lightsabers, with 3 characters that have dramatically different fight styles, right? At least in some way.
Too young to hold pain.
It's nice that you could like see where it could go. It'd just be nice if it was like they just had their own game. If Bandai Namco just made a 3D. I feel like that would be fucking huge nowadays, where they just make a 3D like Star Wars game made by like the Tekken or Soul Calibur devs. Please, like, give me that shit.
Because it's not like we're in this weird nebulous period like 1997 or something where there's not new Star Wars shit happening. Guess what? There's a new Star Wars thing happening once a month.
Yeah.
There's a new Disney Plus show or a new thing happening. Like, now is still a good time. You can do it. I'm sorry, I just found a screenshot of General Grievous in this game, and he's swinging around 3 lightsabers, and there's just a tiny Yoda that has one tiny little lightsaber. It's just a really funny screenshot.
I am the Force is with me.
Yeah, I mean, is it Star Wars in general? I mean, it's just popular. Like, don't they have their own like Star Wars convention where people just like show up and do Star Wars things?
I'm assuming there is,
because I remember seeing something like that.
I have 1 or 2 more to throw at you guys. There was an.
Oh, but before you go into it, I'm curious if you guys will eventually get to the most infamous canceled game, or quote unquote left to darkness game of all of them. And I'm gonna let you go first, Matt, because I'm curious if this is in there.
So I'm intrigued though. There was an Assassin's Creed fighting game pitched by Ubisoft.
Wait, really?
There's just a couple of concept art pieces, but their whole thing is called Assassin's Creed Duel. and it was going to be 3D, like 2.5, like, you know, like Street Fighter 4. And there's no like screenshots of the game per se, but they're also going to be like, let's get our other Ubisoft characters in there. So Sam Fisher from Splinter Cell, the Prince from Prince of Persia, Jade from Beyond Good and Evil.
What the hell?
And let's get all the mainline assassins from Assassin's Creed games. I don't know what year this was planned around. Probably want to say 2011 or something. So there was enough characters, and it's just like a concept pitch, and then it wasn't picked up. So
Ubisoft
I mean, it's essentially.
All-Stars.
Oh, this is hard.
So remember, Ubisoft had that weird period where they published a Smash-like that was Ninja Turtles, Ninja Turtles Smash Up, and that game had Rabbids in it as selectable characters.
Yeah.
So that was a dark period. So yeah, Assassin's Creed Duel. Then I have the Lobo fighting game for Super Nintendo and Genesis.
You said Lobo, like that was the DC character?
Yeah.
Lobo?
Max, Killer Instinct all over the place. It was just rendered like to look like that. Finishing moves. Got pretty far in development. There is a playable build of it.
Huh.
And it's all Lobo. Looks terrible. Like visually, it's just so
Cat
dark and like,
box.
you know, unless you're like a
I guess in
master,
the
like a
corner
rare,
here.
it's
Wait,
hard
what's
to make that art
going
style
to?
like
Oh wait,
pop
okay.
and
So I don't
that
think I want
visual
to run into
information
the
I'll show you how
cat
good Rare
when they
was
do
at
that
that stuff,
business.
because there's a lot of attempts at the time to do that CG rendering into sprites shit, and it looks bad, man. Like Iron Man Exo War type shit.
Exactly.
What the fuck am I looking at?
And the other one that's in that exact same vein, it was a game made by Atari. It's also completely playable. It was an arcade game called Vicious Circle. And exactly.
Keep going.
You want to
Vicious
talk
Circle.
Killer Instinct like ripoffs? This is the ultimate one where the characters are called. Well, there's a character called Edge. And there's just robots and sexy ladies and just monsters, and it's just the most Killer Instinct. The logo is a bunch of jaggedy shapes, and it's just like a tribal tattoo, and that's the logo. It got far enough where it's like all the characters are playable, but I think it just didn't get released, kind of like Primal Rage 2, where it just didn't get a wide distribution. And I need to play it. I want to get a build of that going. Like, I think you can just MAME it or whatever, but I'm really excited to try it.
A lot of people would probably be asking at this point, with all these games that we're talking about, it's like, if the game's in such a finished state, how the hell does it not release, right? How the hell does it get to this point? It's a much different part of the industry where a fighting game would take, honestly, on average, like 6 months to make. Like, I think the original Killer Instinct was like an 8-month project or something.
It was very short.
It was super short. So a lot of these games weren't huge commitments. Like, the fighting game genre was kind of wonderful around the 90s and stuff, where these fighting games were canceled and didn't exist, because it was essentially a low budget, low effort for a lot of devs just to like try to dip their toes into this fighting game market that was so big. And that's where like a lot of the crazy saturation comes from, because it was cheap, it was easy to do. Everyone thought they could do it as good as Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat or Killer Instinct, and they all had their unique take on it and how bad it was, you know? So if it was like, oh, it just got to the point where like 95% done, there's no fatalities, whatever, just cancel it, go make a new Blitz game or some shit.
And the other thing about like the arcades is that a lot of time they would bring these like unfinished games to do an arcade test, like a location test, and I've read like at least once or twice, like sometimes the tests go really badly and upper management goes, let's just not
scrap it.
Just scrap it, because they weren't huge commitments like you mentioned. Do any of you remember, or maybe Max remembers, Street Fighter 4 Flashback?
Is this the okay, so there was a weird ass Street Fighter 4 literal Flash fighting game. That
Flash? Flash
it
animation?
was on like browsers, from what I remember. No, is this not it? Okay.
So before Street Fighter 4 was ever like really like publicly announced, Udon, Backbone Entertainment, and another developer pitched to Capcom, let's make a 3D Street Fighter and call it Street Fighter 4 Flashback. There's no screenshots of this, there's some concept art, and their pitch was make it like 3D, like behind the back sort of clashing, not like on a 2D plane. It was more like you know, like I guess like
Wait,
for
did
lack
you
of a
want me
better
to put a wall here or
descriptor,
not? Am
like
I supposed to sell
power
these
stone.
stores?
Do you mean
And-
the 3DS version of Street Fighter 4 where you have the camera behind the fucking character?
Like, think about that, but this was before that. Think
Okay.
about that camera
that
angle.
kind of visual.
Yes. And their big pitch was a gigantic story mode that was like a 3D action game where you controlled Ryu throughout his life. So young Ryu, you fight Sagat. You beat him in Street Fighter 1.
okay, I'm not supposed to
Street
do
Fighter
this.
2, and then maybe even Street Fighter 3. And it was wandering around a stage, like talking to characters. The thing that I read is that it was pitches like, think about Onimusha, like that. Like that was their pitch towards Capcom.
Oh,
And
no, do
that's,
they want a
the
full
main
wall
story
here?
mode,
I
and
think
then
that's what
there's a
they're asking
versus
for.
suite where you can take all these characters and you duke it out. They did not even get close to like, I think maybe some models were prepped. It was called Street Fighter 4 Flashback, and the flashback is because of let's flashback through Ryu's life.
That sounds pretty cool. Like,
Wait, do they want to close this
It's like
off?
one of those random
Oh, no,
Street
they
Fighter
don't want to have
games.
an
Like,
opening here.
remember that Street Fighter animated movie game with the but you're the cyborg?
Yeah,
or whatever?
you have to level up the
for
robot.
this,
Yeah,
for the
that's like-
Saturn.
it's like one of those random spin-off games that just like kind of never seen the light of day, but I mean that game did.
That absolutely reeks like
Alright,
the
come on, boy.
Capcom
Let's go
USA
here.
has just actually acquired the rights and
Yeah.
licensing for Street
Yeah.
Fighter, and now Street Fighter technically belongs to Capcom USA. What are they gonna do with it?
Exactly, and I can never find like solid reasons as to why this didn't make it past like any sort of phase. I think it's just because I don't even think no, it definitely didn't. HD Remix hadn't even come out yet, so I think there was still hesitancy, like Udon, Backbone. I'm not
Yeah.
sure if they can handle a thing like this because this is meant to be like 3D. It was not, you know, anything small scale. Like this would be an investment. And this is going to be for like early 360 PS3. I'm thinking, well, maybe not early, but like, yeah, 2007 is my sort of guess. But I really wish there was something more substantial to look at. But it's just a couple of pieces of concept art, like a description. But this was like their big pitch to Capcom USA, I think.
And we have to remember, like around that time frame, HD Remix was almost canceled several times, right?
It's
That,
true.
that game was in development for like 4 years or something like that. It was an insanely long. They were not ready for how much work that game was going to be, and the fact that it even came out was a miracle.
Yeah, I remember Christian Svensson had a long talk with me at Captivate about, hey, you shouldn't talk shit about that project on your NeoGAF account. We seen you talking shit.
NeoGAF.
And because at the time when they canceled, but they redrew all the art. Everyone's seen that, like that art of Ken shooting a Hadouken, and he's so fucking
Wait,
detailed, and he's got all
lost
these
connection.
layers of shading.
Yeah.
And then they wound up with what they
I don't know
wound
what lost
up,
connection,
which is
though.
far more basic. And on NeoGAF, I was like, oh, that's so disappointing. The other art style looks so great. So like 2 years later, when that game released, Christian Svensson, who's the VP at Capcom USA at the time, is just like, just letting you know, just put all the cards out on the table. We went through hell trying to get that project done. It was going to get canceled several times because Capcom Japan were like, I don't know. I don't like what I'm seeing here.
It's not the classics. That's what they're saying.
Exactly.
God bless
And-
Sven, by the way. That guy was
they're like
so
they're
cool.
too bulky.
He was cool, and at that time, it was like 2 years had passed since I'd made those posts, and at the time, I was like working for a developer and like really on the dev team,
Hey,
like a
we got
QA
Birdcage
capacity,
here.
and I was on a game for like a year
Really
and a
big
half. This was like
Birdcage.
Deus Ex Human Revolution on the 360, and like that just opened up my eyes like even more to like how things change and
Oh,
you
yeah.
have to roll with the punches
Yeah.
and stuff. And I was like, hey, I appreciate you telling me this, Mr. Svensson. So yeah, it was eye-opening and everything. But
So in that same regard, like with
Yes.
potentially similar people involved, I have a fighting game that we have not talked about that is possibly the biggest one.
This is the one you were saying about,
This
right?
is the one I was talking about.
The
And
biggest one of all time.
Here's my hint. Characters like Christian Svensson, who was the VP of Capcom USA at the time, definitely would have been involved in this game, in this process, especially around the time frame. Can you guys think of a Capcom-related fighting game that was technically announced and never came out and was canceled?
Justin, you take a shot at this first.
Was it I mean, the one I mentioned earlier was Sammy versus Capcom, but I don't know if that's the one that you're
That's a
talking
good
about.
one. That technically, I don't even know if it started, but it was essentially canceled because I think Sega Sammy became a thing and just ruined it, and Capcom was like, yeah, we don't want to do fighting games for a while. Shut up.
Yeah.
But it's one that's like, I realized it as we were talking about this, and I'm like, oh shit, dude, how have we not thought about this? Matt, any suggestions?
Are they alive or are they dead?
Oh, they are definitely dead. the most infamous canceled fighting game of all of it, because there was a CG trailer, there was an announcement,
An expensive CG
and a
trailer.
very expensive trailer. And I mean, I don't know how much we can talk. It's been, how many years has it been? It's been almost like, it's been a long time, man.
It's up to you on how much you want to talk about this.
So, we're talking about Darkstalkers, right? We're talking about circa 2012 announcement of It's been 10 years, okay? So it's been a decade. Most NDAs and anything like that, like anything people have heard about shit, goes on for about a decade, and then it's kind of like free reign. But from what I could recall, and the different routes of people, from like people that worked at Capcom back then, and a lot of those folks that I even worked directly with, is that yeah, Darkstalkers was a game. It was a thing. And then it eventually, the ultimate reasons that we all assumed that it was canceled was because Darkstalkers Resurrection really underperformed, and after Street Fighter Cross Tekken, things weren't looking good for Capcom.
Like, Darkstalkers Resurrection was kind of meant to be the HD remix of Street Fighter. Like, let's see how people respond to, like, you know, this small-scale Street Fighter project. Oh, they're responding really well. So let's, like, you know, we have confidence in Street Fighter 4, even though Street Fighter 4 was being made at the time, HD Remix was being made, but it was like an extra boost of like, oh, cool, we're like getting a bunch of momentum. But when Darkstalkers Resurrection, the incredible collection by Iron Galaxy,
a great game,
a lot of work and love put into that, and it just, I think, going back to Christian Svensson, he had said, like, yeah, these sales are not what we had hoped for.
Yeah.
For Darkstalkers Resurrection.
And it's because they had not even that long ago released a collection on PSP that technically had more games, right?
It did.
And the Darkstalkers games had been re-released in several fashions, like, throughout the years that, you know, of course nobody, like, people wanted a new fucking Darkstalkers game. So the craziest part about this entire time frame is that, from what I heard, like, just around the block and through people and through different facets, that a game existed. It wasn't just a CG trailer, that there was actually a game that looked really fucking cool. And I can't back up any of this as far as who said it, because once again, people through people through people. But yeah, it was essentially just completely canned. That they at least had a visual style, they at least had something to show, because it wasn't like that early Street Fighter 4 state where everyone described the game as like crunchy and shitty looking, right? Those very early Street Fighter 4 builds, like, no, SF4 sort of was the basis of Capcom fighting games going forward, and they had a lot of history with it, and apparently it was like Dimps making it too, because it had that style, and Dimps were also the ones that made SF4 and Street Fighter Cross Tekken. And it just sank because Cross Tekken bombed.
I was about to say that it all comes back to like Cross Tekken bomb, and that put like
goes back to Cross Tekken.
Don't hate on Cross Tekken, man. Don't hate on it.
Not hating on the game, and especially what the 2013 update did, but it's the ramifications of its failure were felt throughout Capcom's fighting game division.
We are still feeling the ramifications of Street Fighter Cross Tekken's profitable failure to this fucking day, man. It's crazy.
You know what's crazy is that I actually saw an article literally the other day, I think on Event Hubs, talking about how, like, why Street Fighter Cross Tekken failed. So they're still talking about how, yeah, Street Fighter Cross Tekken messed up a lot of things. But the crazy part is, I totally, completely forgot about this trailer that this is the one that showed at Comic-Con, right?
It's got Lord Raptor in it and shit. Yeah. It's got Dimitri.
Yeah, I guess their slogan was Darkstalkers are not dead. Like, that was like their slogan and everything. But
that now a meme.
Yeah, now a meme. But you know, the CGI trailer looked very good. It was like, obviously it took it kind of like from the Street Fighter 4 art style at the time, but
oh, here you go.
Yeah, this would have been cool. I totally forgot all about this.
But because it's like they kind of played it off a bit, where it's Darkstalkers Resurrection now. And I think it was only one or two quotes ever from Ono where he's like, yeah, we decided to do this instead. Sorry, we cannot go forward with my original plan. Like, he was very vague about it.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
they kind of, like, PR-wise, it kind of twisted into, like, yeah, that was... They are not dead because please buy Darkstalkers Resurrection.
Yeah.
Oh, you didn't buy it. Oh, okay. Or
Oh, earphones died.
Darkstalkers games. Stay tuned for Capcom Fighting Game Collection with all 4 Darkstalkers old games.
Exactly. And here's the thing, which is why I'm very adamant about people like, hey, that fighting game collection is most likely going to be pretty good, right? It's got a lot of stuff. It's got if it's made by the same devs, and I actually got confirmed it's not made by M2 or outside devs in Japan. It is made internally at Capcom, the same way that the Capcom Arcade Stadium was. I got updated that is the case. So they are taking their in-house ports pretty seriously now, which is kind of cool. And I'm very curious how the netcode and the online play, because all those games have online netcode. All online functionality. That game is a test, right? And I can even tell you that, like, there are certain moments in this industry, especially with like fighting games and testing the waters to see if there is an audience, where they'll release the older thing to see if people would be interested in a newer thing.
So wait, you're saying there's something called the Capcom Test? I've never heard of this phenomenon.
Never heard of it, right? Yes, it just doesn't exist because they have only done it like 1 billion fucking times. So, and it's the same thing also happened for recently over the past year for Virtua Fighter, right? Where Virtua Fighter was absolutely a test of just seeing if, like, oh, if we do a relatively low budget effort thing, right, can maybe there's interest, even make it free. Does anybody give a shit? And yeah, clearly a lot of people gave a shit. Like, there was a shit ton of downloads for that game. So there's these moments of test, and yes, Darkstalkers Resurrection was the test for Darkstalkers to hopefully become a thing after a very rocky release of a very expensive Street Fighter Cross Second. And no, didn't happen because of that. So the saddest part is that, yes, from around the block, like, I'm sure me and Matt and any friends of Capcom around like the late 2000s, early 2010s could tell you that there was a game there that was apparently pretty fucking cool and just stopped because...
So do you think this is the Capcom Fighting Game Collection coming out, like, because it's very highly advertised for all the Darkstalkers game, even Vampire Savior 2, do you think this is like a second test for, like, Darkstalkers are not dead?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay, guys. So everyone, you guys watching, make sure you buy the game.
The moment that trailer came on before the Street Fighter 6 trailer, and they were advertising that it was like every single Darkstalkers game playable with rollback netcode, I'm like, oh god, it's happening again. And the nice part is that the game isn't just Darkstalkers games, right? They're Pocket Fighters in there, and a lot of games that have just never really been released outside of the 90s.
Red Earth,
yeah, or released at all. So there's a lot of, like, value in a lot of those titles and games. There's a Super Turbo Edition Select. There's like Super Turbo Anniversary.
Hyper
SF2 Turbo. So that's great. Like, that's never actually been released for, like, forever, since like the 15th anniversary collection. There's a lot of value there, but the headliner is Darkstalkers.
But you know what's an incredible thing about this collection is that there's a bunch of stuff like you just said, but if Capcom looks at this and just goes, oh, this sold really well, this must mean people want another collection. Hey, that's cool. No,
and you know what? That's cool as well.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's cool. We got more games.
Or they go, people must want a new Darkstalker. Yeah! People must want a new Red Earth.
You know,
I'll take it.
Why not?
Or you know what? Well, maybe we don't have enough. Maybe a new Darkstalkers is kind of risky, right? But people love these collections, and we have all these characters again. Maybe we should make an All-Stars game. Maybe we should make our Versus series into an All. Yeah, you know. There's nothing but positive situations that could come as a result of the Capcom Fighting Collection hopefully being a good game with good online, and all those titles leading to something else that is just fucking super sick.
Yeah. Unfortunately, what this will actually mean is that they'll go, well, we should open up a pop-up cafe that has a few characters' arts on the wall of Darkstalkers, and it's going to be open in Japan for 2 months, and then it's going to go away. And
will-
that's the lesson that we took
We
from
will
this
make
collection.
a T-shirt.
We will only sell it at TGS. And you can be there.
Only
Oh, it's a
available at
bathroom.
Tokyo Game Show. The limited edition, the Darkstalkers Are Not Dead T-shirt.
I think Capcom does a great job when they're
Oh, that's
adding,
it. That's
like,
it. End of the
collaboration.
podcast. A dumb joke of what Capcom will potentially do. Alright, probably we'll listen to another podcast. What we do? I haven't finished the Yoscast one, so I'm probably gonna listen to that one. Oh no, I have I have finished it. Alright, I'll listen to the other one.
Animal, vegetable,
Is this it? Is this part of the show?
animal, vegetable, mineral.
I always like vegetable news.
Vegetable news.
Yeah.
That's it then. That's the
We
topic.
starting to do with that today.
Today is going to be vegetable news, and it's all your fault because you picked it.
Well, I mean, I'm down for anything, but let's do some vegetable.
Down with the sickness?
No.
Are you down to clown?
No. I'm not. Okay, I'm not
Okay.
down with anything at all, it turns out.
No.
I'm down
Well,
with
I did only
very little.
suggest two things.
Well, but of those two answers,
Yeah.
both no. I mean,
That's
I'm the
true.
100%
Actually, no, I
failure
could have
rate
done.
of being down to do things.
I feel
DTF.
like these two walls would have been
No.
the brown tile, and then the other
No.
walls would be these long ones.
Our first topic of the day, the famous vegetable, the strawberry. The strawberry is famously not a berry. It's the swollen receptacle of the flower.
Is it like a stamen or whatever?
Yeah,
Or
something
a
like that.
Stimulum.
Yeah, not a
Stomach.
berry.
It's not a drooper. Really?
No, yes.
God, well, the more you know.
The more you know.
This isn't. This is not an educational.
It is.
podcast.
It is. We're teaching people about large fruits and vegetables.
So sorry, the world's biggest strawberry. How big is it?
It's as big as a man's hand, judging from the photograph.
Looks very flat.
It does look very flat. It's not the shape of a strawberry.
No, it's squashed. Really, really squashed.
It's very.
Maybe
yeah.
that's like a type of strawberry. Though.
No, I think that's just what they look like when they just grow weirdly.
Mutantly massive.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, they grow on the ground, strawberries, don't they?
Yes.
So
In little bushes.
yes, they're very cute. Yes,
Pick your own. Have you ever picked your own?
I have. Many
Nose?
times. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't always find.
Bumhole?
Don't always find things that I'm looking for though.
No.
Not always strawberries. There.
Sometimes you find a bit of treasure
Yes.
and then you pop it in your mouth.
Well, it's tasty and succulent, aren't they? Strawberries.
They are. They are.
We love them.
Very low in sugar as well.
Is that true?
Yeah. Insane because they're really sweet, but they're actually low in sugar.
Really?
Yeah.
Kind of don't believe you.
It's true. It's true. Do you want me to Google strawberry?
Sugariest
Sugar.
fruits list.
Is strawberry high in sugar? Strawberries are surprisingly low in sugar.
Thanks, Google. Considering they are so sweet and delicious, this is what you said.
Fruits lowest in sugar. Strawberries make the list.
Peaches, I thought they would be one of the sweetest as well.
Yeah. It's weird, isn't it?
I
Avocados.
think we have like a
feel
bathtub,
like
so
that
we gotta
should
do
be
the
on
end one as a bathtub.
Grapefruit. I could have told you that, but that's not very sugary.
How would you react if someone just, like, in the office, you know, you're walking past their desk, they've got an avocado, you know, say it's Nina, right? Nina's sat at her desk, she's like
Enjoying a low sugar
Oh, do we
fruit.
need
she's
to
working
unscrew this
through
first?
her lunch, you know, in her right hand she's, you know, drawing, you know,
Mr. Milo.
yeah.
but
Probably
it's
Trot's face or
Yeah.
something, right?
sure.
So in her left hand, she's holding a whole avocado, and she just takes a bite into it. Skin's still on it. She's chewing.
It's very chewy skin.
Now she's eating the fucking stone, taking a bite out of it.
I've never tried. Uh-huh.
It's me being Nemo.
I'd just be...
Perfect.
I mean,
You'd just be stood there staring at her, like.
but it's the same thing about the skin, isn't it? That the skin is... a banana, sorry. You can eat the banana skin. People recommend, if your bananas going off, you should freeze them, and then you should blend them into your smoothie. So...
Skin and all.
Skin and all. I know. That's what I was surprised by as well. And apparently it's really good. Another thing about avocados are really sweet. They only last like a day, right?
Yeah.
They're rubbish. But
Yeah.
you put them in water in the fridge, they last like 2 weeks. That could be... I could have fallen for a scam there. But
Does it have to be water? Can it be
what?
piss?
Oh.
Can it be any? Could it be Monster Energy drink?
I'm still
Could it be
thinking about
San Pellegrino?
piss.
You always are though.
Do you think it would be... Thing is, you'd have to have the piss already chilled.
Why
wouldn't
can't you use warm piss?
Well, you don't want to like warm the avocado up.
Right.
To body
Because that would be
temperature.
bad.
Yeah, that'll make it go off quicker.
Right. Okay.
You see what I mean?
Why do we need
Also,
two mirrors?
I don't necessarily love the idea of infusing my avocado.
Would
Unless
the piss soak
each
into
singy
it?
is
It's
own
still
mirror
got skin
dedicated
on
to it or something.
Even if it didn't, I think you'd still taste it. You know, you'd think it had.
Do you know what? I'm going to come into the office next week with an avocado. With 2 avocados.
Right? We'll have a control group.
Yeah. One of these has been soaking in my piss for a week. One has been submerged in water.
Monster
Which
energy.
one? And then you do a taste test.
I like avocados.
We don't have a toaster, so we can't have.
Not a
can't
toast
have-
test. No.
No, you can't put it on toast. You can't have avo toast in the office. Well, you could microwave some bread.
I've never done that.
Microwave some bread.
We are full of ideas.
Life
today.
hack. Don't have a toaster. Just microwave some bread.
God, we are full of useful shit, aren't we? God,
We
have created something new. No.
you and I, separately,
What?
both own the toaster that we saw Ashens and his mate use.
Oh, the little microwavable.
The little toasty maker thing.
There's a toasty, your microwavable toasty maker. That makes toast.
Yeah, we can use that. We're allowed that in to use. Yeah, probably.
Are
Why
you still
wouldn't we?
talking about the avocado piss taste?
Yeah, I'm going to put the avocado in a toasty and make you eat it. Half of the toasty is going to be normal avocado. The other one's going to be Simon's special avocado.
Confused.
Hello, Rash.
Not
What are you
necessarily.
watching? This is to
Bit of salt on it.
the podcast
Don't they keep
from the
avocados
Yorks
fresh
cast.
with some sort of
It's
oil
Peculiar
anyway?
Portions.
'Cause they come
It's the
all wet
45th
from
one
the
if you want to know which one I'm listening to.
Well,
Yeah,
They give us two-
normally I would have been
People are
listening to some
ignoring.
music, but I've been more in the
They-
mood of
they
listening to
spray
like
them in, like,
you know
ethylene or something,
podcasts
like
instead.
some chemical to keep them fresh. Maybe they just didn't know about the water thing. No one tested it.
How else
Maybe
we,
the water thing doesn't work. I've taken
we don't
this
know if this is even real,
speculative
do we?
idea quite a long way.
I guess you could put them in barrels of water and, transport them in barrels of water.
Yeah, like old school, like or whiskey.
Whiskey infused avocado.
Or rum, like they did with old Admiral Nelson when he was killed.
When he passed. Rest in peace. Big strawberries.
Yeah.
That's what we were talking about. 10 ounces it weighs.
dog.
7 inches long and 13 inches in circumference.
Bloody hell.
Curiously missing the thickness dimension, since it's so flat.
Yeah.
It's basically a fucking pancake, isn't it?
Yes.
It's a pancake strawberry, which I don't
Alright,
think is a
where
strawberry.
does the
I
good
think
dog
it's
wallpaper
a
go?
squash strawberry.
It's a special strain of strawberry that they've been making at an institute in Israel. When we heard, it was an amazing feeling. I jumped in the car, laughed and sang.
Okay.
We've been waiting for this for a long time. This man's life is strawberries.
Ariel proudly displays his certificate on a laptop. Hasn't even got a fucking.
Didn't even print it out. Oh my god, the record's been held since 2015, so I guess this is quite an achievement.
No,
to
it's not.
grow an ugly giant strawberry.
This is stupid.
Does it taste nice though? That's the issue,
It
isn't
doesn't
it?
look like it. It's all seed. Look at it. It's very seedy.
There is a lot of seeds on it, yeah.
I don't think you should be holding it out like that. It looks half the time.
I think it is, because I mean look, there's like strawberry juice on his fingers.
Maybe this isn't the
It's
real
on the
picture.
turn.
though.
I think
Maybe
it's
this
on the
is-
turn.
Maybe this is just a picture of the big one.
I don't think so. I don't think that CNN travel. Why is it under travel? Oh, because it's not in America. Maybe that's why.
6 inches. How big's that? But
It's about the length of your hand, isn't it? On a big man's hand. It's about 6 inches
sure.
from the end of your palm to the tip of
So
your
it does
longest
look
finger.
like that's right.
It's usually about that.
That looks about right. Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Vegetable news. So someone posted this on the Yogscast
I
subreddit.
saw.
Well, they didn't post the link to the Airbnb. I found that and I posted it. But someone posted a meme with Frodo and Samwise or something.
Yes. Do you remember there's this? Did we talk about it before? The giant potato.
There's a giant potato in Xylophagou
Is that somewhere different?
in Cyprus.
Oh, you're right.
That was a statue of a large
Oh, that was
potato.
that was the
There's
poo one.
another bedroom.
Yeah.
But this one's lying down.
This is in Idaho, which is a state famous for its potatoes.
Idaho. And how's no one made that? They have.
So
They-
this large potato it's in Boise.
Boise, Idaho. Sure.
Hello there, Del boy. Boise.
Stay outside.
So there's a
Bit-
potato.
Marlene. He's dead now, isn't he? He's dead.
Well,
Boise.
the longer we do this show, the more people and references that we make will be to things that have passed
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
I mean, it's inevitable.
It's sad,
The
really.
part of time.
So it's the potato state. The this large potato you can stay in. It's owned by the Idaho Potato Commission.
Yes. A 6-ton potato, an imitation potato,
Yeah.
and it's been touring states
The lower 48, I believe.
on the back of a semi-truck
So not
to promote Idaho's potatoes, I guess.
yeah, not been to Alaska or Hawaii, I'm guessing. So we've got some nice pictures. Looks like a big potato.
I think it's disappointing that it's never been on holiday.
It's never been kissed.
It's never been able to get its passport and get away. Do you know what I'm saying? Just away from the hustle and bustle.
Where would
Uh-oh,
it go?
burn.
You need a
running out of
passport to
budget
get to
soon.
Hawaii. Maybe it doesn't actually. Or Alaska.
Who knows? Who fucking
Maybe
knows?
it wants to go to Cyprus. You know, maybe it's seen that there's another lonely big potato.
And they fall in love.
Yeah,
What a story that would be.
it'd be great.
So
It
was
looks like a palace inside, by
When
the
it
way.
when it was touring the lower 48 states, was it also still an Airbnb? Was someone living in it as it was touring?
No, I guess they had potato-based literature inside to advertise the Idaho potato
Right.
stuff. And
Maybe
maybe,
it's like, hey everyone, come to Idaho, see the potatoes.
or maybe they had some like complimentary crisps in there, or some
Oh.
like a
Fries.
mashing machine where you could mash your own, or well, that would be a bit awful, you know, potato inside.
Alright,
Inside
never does
it.
everything.
It's been hollowed out.
Oh, that's quite dark, isn't
It
it?
is
Really?
selling itself on a wagon.
Alright,
but-
let's
okay,
go
if you can't see
celebrate
this
our
picture,
work.
It looks a little bit like, because it's a tube, it's like a little bit like an aeroplane view. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, because it's round.
Yeah. And
Um,
it's got
It's like
like,
being inside a cylinder.
yeah, it's weird.
Look at the floor. The floor is just like chipboard or something,
Alright,
right?
time for
MDF.
today.
Yeah, there's like a chipboard floor with a couple of cheap-looking seats. What is that I'm looking at the end there? Is that a doorway?
That's either the entrance or where the bathroom is. Or maybe that's the bathroom.
There's a bathroom
outside.
located in an old grain silo about 50 feet from the potato.
Oh, that's awkward, isn't it? In the middle of the night, you got to have a pee. You know, you got to leave the embrace, the womb-like
So nice
embrace
when you
of
mow
the
the
giant
lawn.
potato. Go out into the cold night of Idaho. Walk 50 feet barefoot.
I don't think it sounds all that bad. That looks quite nice. Got a tin bath.
Alright.
Nice looking sink. Again, really odd because it's literally a big dustbin, and they've had to build a bathroom in this
No
weird
needs. Oh, tell me
cylinder
the
shape.
needs over here.
So you go from the potato where it's like a cylinder on the ground
Yeah.
to the silo where it's an upright cylinder. It's
I should keep like
real,
a small
it
dog
says
bed
on it,
here
but it
though.
isn't. I mean,
No,
that's-
it's not a real potato. It's not a real potato.
It's advertised with the slogan "It's real" on the back of a truck.
www.bigidahopotato.com.
I really had to work hard for that URL.
There you go, I typed it
Famous
wrong.
Idaho potato tour.
Potato team. Sneak team.
Hashtag spicy spud. Hashtag super spud. Hashtag spud racer. And then the backup driver is hashtag tater totter.
Why do they have their own hashtag?
That's their nicknames.
That's
Spicy
fucking-
racer and
Oh, so cute.
and 40 racer. It
Alright.
looks awful. That poor.
I'm going to head off now. Yeah, I don't want to stream too long for today. I mean, I was going to play Stellaris, but I know when I start playing Stellaris, I'll play it for a very long time. So yeah, that's why I did House Flipper instead for today. But yeah, tomorrow is Saturday, so that's VR Chat Saturday. Yeah, be my last day of work. Alright, I'll see you guys tomorrow for VR Chat Saturdays. You guys have a good night.